China just attempted their most ambitious rocket landing yet. The booster came screaming back through the atmosphere, engines blazing, targeting a precise landing zone. But when it touched down, it was 2 kilometers off target, 2,000 meters. Meanwhile, SpaceX routinely lands Falcon 9 boosters within meters of their mark, sometimes on moving drone ships in the middle of the ocean. What makes this gap so massive? And here's what should really terrify China's space program. If copying Falcon 9 is this hard, what happens when they try to replicate Starship? Let's dive right in. Let's rewind 20 years. China's space program was launching basic rockets at a slow pace, using designs that hadn't changed much in decades. Fast forward to today, and they're operating their own space station, launching more frequently than Russia, and openly competing with the United States for orbital dominance. That kind of transformation doesn't happen by luck. So what's their secret? Here's what most people miss. China didn't waste time reinventing the wheel. They studied what already worked, identified proven designs, and refined them for their purposes. Look at their early Long March rockets. The staging concepts, engine layouts, even the basic architecture, borrowed heavily from American and Soviet designs from the 1960s and 70s. This wasn't innovation, but it was smart. Why spend decades solving problems someone else already figured out? For traditional expendable rockets, this approach worked brilliantly. The physics are well understood, the engineering is documented, and you're essentially building something designed to work once and then crash into the ocean. But then SpaceX changed everything. And this is where China's copying strategy hit a wall they're still struggling to climb. SpaceX didn't just build better rockets. They fundamentally rewrote the economics of spaceflight. Instead of accepting that billion-dollar hardware gets destroyed after one mission, they asked a question nobody else was seriously pursuing. What if we could land it and fly it again? That single question required solving problems that had nothing to do with traditional rocketry. You need software that can make thousands of calculations per second, guidance systems that work flawlessly while being baked at over 1,000 degrees Celsius, structural margins that can handle multiple flights without catastrophic failure, and operational discipline that treats every landing like the first one. You can't just copy that from blueprints. Which brings us to what happened in December. China launched a new rocket late at night. The ascent looked textbook perfect. Clean liftoff, smooth climb, stage separation right on schedule. From the outside, everything suggested success, but the real test was just beginning. After separation, the booster flipped around and started its journey back to Earth, targeting a landing zone hundreds of kilometers from the launch site. During the descent, observers noticed something concerning in the released footage. The engine was glowing intensely, surrounded by a massive white plume. That alone isn't necessarily problematic. Rockets vent propellant and experience extreme heating during re-entry. But the upper section of the booster appeared to be getting hit by exhaust gases or reflected plume interaction. When hot gases start affecting parts of your vehicle not designed to handle them, you're in trouble. Even minor aerodynamic disruptions can throw off your guidance by meters. And when you're trying to land within a tight target zone, meters matter. The booster came down 2 kilometers away from its intended landing site, 2,000 meters. In everyday terms, that might not sound catastrophic, but here's what that miss actually means. Their guidance system, their engine control, their aerodynamic modeling, or their propellant management. Something in that chain failed significantly. SpaceX lands Falcon 9 boosters within single-digit meters of their targets, sometimes on drone ships bobbing in ocean swells. The precision gap between 2 kilometers off and 2 meters off represents years of development, thousands of test runs, and intimate understanding of every variable affecting that descent. So why is landing an orbital-class rocket so brutally difficult? When a Falcon 9 first stage separates, it's traveling at roughly 2,000 meters per second. That's about Mach 6. At those speeds, tiny guidance errors compound instantly. The booster must execute a boost-back burn to kill its horizontal velocity, survive atmospheric re-entry without a traditional heat shield, and then nail a precision landing burn. During re-entry, surface temperatures exceed 1,000 degrees Celsius, especially around the engine bells and grid fins. The booster isn't wrapped in protective tiles like a spacecraft. It has to survive this environment using bare metal, engine shielding, and constant active guidance. The grid fins are crucial here. These titanium structures mounted near the top of the stage move constantly, steering the rocket through the atmosphere in real time. Early Falcon 9 versions used aluminum grid fins that couldn't handle the thermal and aerodynamic loads. They warped, they failed, they cost SpaceX several boosters before they switched to titanium. That's just one component among thousands that has to work perfectly. Then there's fuel management, arguably the trickiest part. The booster must reserve exactly enough propellant for landing without sacrificing payload capacity. Too little fuel, and you can't complete the landing burn. Too much fuel reserved, and you can't carry enough payload to make the mission economically viable. SpaceX spent years optimizing this balance, and they had to make hard choices early on between landing attempts and maximizing what they could deliver to orbit. Between 2013 and 2016, SpaceX destroyed multiple boosters, learning these lessons. Some crashed because they ran out of hydraulic fluid for the grid fins. Others hit the drone ship at an angle and exploded spectacularly. One booster landed perfectly upright, then tipped over because a landing leg didn't lock properly. Each failure cost tens of millions of dollars. Each failure also provided irreplaceable data. Today, Falcon 9's landing success rate exceeds 95%. SpaceX has landed over 500 boosters. Some individual boosters have flown more than 30 missions each. Think about what that means. The same piece of hardware has endured launch, re-entry, and landing 36 times without being completely rebuilt. No other organization in human history has achieved anything remotely close to this level of reusability. This is the wall China keeps hitting. They can study SpaceX's external hardware. They can analyze videos of landings. They can even poach engineers who might share general knowledge. But what they can't copy is the institutional knowledge embedded in those failures. They can't replicate the specific software algorithms developed through trial and error. They can't shortcut the engineering culture that treats reusability as non-negotiable. And here's the part that should genuinely concern China's space leadership. If copying Falcon 9 is proving this difficult, how do they plan to replicate Starship? Falcon 9 stands about 70 meters tall. Starship, when fully stacked with its super heavy booster, reaches approximately 120 meters. That's taller than the Saturn V that sent astronauts to the moon. But unlike Saturn V, Starship is designed to fly repeatedly. At liftoff, Starship generates around 74 meganewtons of thrust, roughly 16.5 million pounds of force. Falcon 9 produces about 7.6 meganewtons. NASA's Space Launch System, currently the most powerful rocket besides Starship, generates around 39 meganewtons. Starship produces nearly double that. This power comes from 33 Raptor engines firing simultaneously on the Super Heavy booster. Falcon 9 uses 9 Merlin engines. Coordinating 9 engines is already extraordinarily complex. Coordinating 33 engines is exponentially harder. Each engine must ignite within milliseconds of the others, throttle precisely based on real-time conditions, and respond instantly to guidance commands. A pressure spike in one engine creates vibrations that affect neighboring engines. A shutdown in one engine forces immediate thrust vector adjustments across the entire cluster. The Raptor engines themselves represent a generational leap. Falcon 9's Merlin engines use a gas generator cycle and operate at around 97 bar of chamber pressure. Raptor engines use a full-flow stage combustion cycle operating at over 300 bar. That's more than triple the pressure. Very few engines in history have operated in that range, and none have done it at this scale or in these quantities. So here's what this 2-kilometer miss really tells us. China can build rockets that reach orbit. They've proven that repeatedly. They can copy traditional designs and execute them competently. But reusable rocketry isn't about copying what you can see. It's about mastering what you can't. The software logic handling thousands of variables per second. The materials science allowing components to survive dozens of flights. The operational experience that only comes from failing, learning, and trying again. SpaceX spent over a decade and destroyed countless boosters to achieve what they do routinely today. China's trying to skip that learning curve, and physics doesn't care about shortcuts. Every 2-kilometer miss is a reminder that some knowledge can't be stolen or reverse engineered. It has to be earned through experience, failure, and relentless iteration. And while China struggles to land a single booster within reasonable accuracy, SpaceX is already catching super heavy boosters with mechanical arms and preparing Starship for orbital refueling. The gap isn't closing, it's widening. The question isn't whether China will eventually figure this out. They probably will, given enough time and resources. The real question is, how many years behind will they remain while SpaceX continues pushing boundaries that didn't exist a decade ago? If this breakdown gave you a new perspective on the space race, hit that like button and share this video with anyone interested in space technology. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. Can China ever close this gap, or is SpaceX too far ahead? And subscribe to Space Update 24 hours so you never miss our analysis of the latest developments in the new space era. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. When Booster 18 exploded, everyone expected SpaceX to slow down. Instead, they just completed Booster 19 in 28 days, compared to 175 days for Booster 18. That's over 6 times faster than before. What did SpaceX discover in that explosion that actually made them faster? Ship 39 has been fully stacked for over a month, waiting for critical validation data. Test Tank 18 just finished proving out Block 3 structural upgrades at Massey's. So what exactly are these upgrades hiding, and why did SpaceX need a dedicated test article first? Let's dive right in. The answer lies in what SpaceX learned from failure, and how they turned that knowledge into their fastest production cycle ever. After Booster 18's explosion, most aerospace companies would pause, review, reassess. SpaceX did the opposite. The methane tank final ring entered Mega Bay 1 on December 20th. The oxygen tank section had already been waiting for 2 weeks. Within days, both sections were mated, and Booster 19 stood complete. This wasn't just fast. This was a fundamental shift in how SpaceX approaches catastrophic failure. Here's what makes this remarkable. Traditional aerospace operates on a simple principle. When something explodes, you stop everything until you understand why. SpaceX operates differently. They identified the root cause, a COPV failure in the China region, and immediately implemented design changes while production continued. Notice those red COPVs visible in Booster 19's imagery? Same location where Booster 18 failed. Different design. That's the critical detail everyone's missing. This is modular production.